Okay, and good night, everyone. Welcome, and I'm handing you over to tonight's moderator, Alicia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And we want to welcome our guest speaker this evening. We've got Keanna Hinds coming in this evening. Keanna Hinds is a registered nurse. She's a mom with over 10 years of experience as a nurse. She enjoys writing and relaxing at home on most of her days off. Keanna's own personal grief journey led her to her newest role as a certified grief counselor and self-published author. She has expanded her practice by finding new ways and coping mechanisms to help people in the community heal. She is the CEO of the Tony Rose Foundation, Inc., which is a non-for-profit organization founded after the tragic death of Keanna's mom, Miss Tony Rose, in 2018. The Tony Rose Foundation Incorporated provides grief support and resources to grieving families across the world. And I would also like to mention Keanna is here in New York with me, but has that strong Vincy blood coursing through her veins.
Yes. Thank you for that awesome introduction. Hi, guys. My name is Keanna, as said. And today I was invited to speak to you guys about chronic illness and how it's related to grief and vice versa. Thank you for having me once again. You guys are going to put up the slides. Okay. Hold on one second.
Are you seeing it?
Yes, everyone can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, you could go to the next slide. Okay, so I wanted to open this meeting with a prayer, if you guys do not mind, as God is actually using me as a tool to provide some much needed and important information to everyone that's here. I would like for him to guide my tongue and also ease my anxiety through this session. So may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. And that's Romans 15, verse 13. So okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so as Alicia already said, I am from Brooklyn, New York. I have heavy roots from St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbean. Go back a slide, please. I'm a registered nurse, have been since 2011. My practice ranges from working bedside nursing to case management, also to hospice and palliative care, which is actually my favorite practice as per. I am a mom of an 8-year-old, rambunctious 8-year-old, Kendall Nicole. We also co-wrote a children's book together, Grieving Granny. So she's also my business partner. And I like to consider myself as a healer, because as we continue to live this life, that's all that we can do, right? Continue to grow and heal. I am also a griever. As Alicia stated, I lost my mom 2018, but I'm not no stranger to grief. She wasn't my first loss, so probably the most tragic, but it definitely catapulted me into where I am today and my calling to help shed some light on this heavy topic. So, right. So I'm hoping this presentation does assist someone, or if not everyone, along their own journey, or if you're just joining just to get some education for yourself to help someone else. I commend you for being here, and let's get started. So the next slide is, what is grief, right? So grief is a series of intense physical and psychological responses that occur following a loss. It's a normal adaptive response to loss. But then there's also bereavement. So bereavement is just a period of grief following the death of a loved one. Then there's mourning. And mourning is a period of time during which grief is expressed, and possibly the resolution and integration of how the loss that occurred. So when I first started my journey, these terms were used interchangeably. The only thing I knew about bereavement was bereavement days as far as for work. That's all I know. So it was very interesting to know that there's different aspects, right? When it comes to grief, it's not just, you're sad. No, what type of sad are you? Where are you along your journey? Next slide, please. All right, so in 1969, the 5 stages of grief was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, right? So this model used to explain the stages of grief over the loss of a loved one. So personally, I'm not a big fan of the stages of grief. You're going to hear me talk interchangeably that grief is a roller coaster ride, right? You can go up and down. There's no clear-cut way of grieving, right? Someone or any situation. When you think about it, when you're playing a video game and you pass level, you go to level 2, right? You don't ever get the option of going back to level 1. You probably can, but the goal is for you to continue on. With grief, you may pass like the anger stage, but may find yourself right back to denying that you're even grieving the next day, right? It's literally up and down. So I'm not a fan of the stages, but there has been an updated model called the 7 stages of grief for chronic pain and illness. And it was created by Dr. Jennifer Martin of ImagineLifeTherapy.com. So according to this model, this is what was brought up regarding clients with chronic diseases and what they go through. So it's denial, pleading, bargaining, and desperation, anger, anxiety, and depression, loss of self, and confusion, reevaluation of life, roles and goals, and acceptance. So with the denial, this stage is more like shock or disbelief that turns into denial eventually. It's like denial and shock that help us to cope and make like survival possible, right? This stage can be really dangerous for people with chronic pain because if you're denying you're sick, you're not seeking the assistance you need, right? You need to take care of what is happening with you in order for things to get better. Denying, regardless of what the situation or what the disease is never a good thing. And if anything, always seek a second opinion, right? Pleading, bargain, and desperation. This stage is characterized by pleading and bargaining in order to keep your life the way it was, to not have to make changes and to continue living as though nothing is wrong, right? So this sort of goes along with denial, because if you're denying anything happened, then I'm gonna just keep on going on, right? Like, oh, what do you mean? I'm fine, on to the next. No. Sometimes we could plunge ourselves into working out, eating healthier, etc., in order to attempt to cure ourselves, right? Self-diagnosis, Google is always our best friends whenever, turmoil hits. You might feel guilt thinking, did I do this to myself? Can I have done something else to prevent this? You might also start to wonder what your purpose in life is or questioning your identity, right? Like, why is this happening to me? And then that leads to anger, right? So once we realize that no amount of pleading or desperation will change our diagnosis, we start to get angry, as we should, right? Angry at the illness, angry at the lack of cure or treatment, angry that this is even happening to you. The list could go on, the amount of reasons why you can be angry, right? But it's good to at least allow ourselves to feel these feelings. We need to really work through this stage in order to start healing and move on to the next one, which is anxiety and depression. It just gets better and better, right? So Dr. Martin describes this anxiety and depression as an appropriate response to a loss or life-altering situation, right? You're human, so anything sad or, surprising or alarming that's going to affect you is going to get you upset, right? At this point of the stage, you may feel like this is going to last forever. This stage comes and goes with the repetitive cycle of worsening and then improvement of symptoms, like the ebb and flow of the tides. And that's also used often in grief, the ebb and flow, going with the waves. That's used interchangeably with discussing grief as well. It's important to recognize that we are grieving the loss of a life we once had, right? Loss of abilities and wellnesses, as well as experiencing anxiety about our future goals. All of this is normal, and it really is okay. The next is loss of self and confusion. This stage is where we really start questioning who we are and where we fit in. We undergo a sort of identity crisis, where we may question what your purpose in life is now. And this could come on the heels of anxiety and depression or right alongside of it, right? But again, this stage is necessary in order for us to continue to heal. Reevaluation of life, roles, and goals, which is one of my favorite stages. That's where a lot of the work comes in, right? We start questioning who we are now, where do we fit in? We are inevitably forced to rewrite our life narrative by exploring new roles and goals for ourselves, right? We explore ways to incorporate aspects of who we used to be into our new normal. For some people, it could just be getting a new job that will allow some flexibility. Like now we can work from home for a lot of jobs now, thanks to COVID. For others, it could be finding some small ways to do things we enjoy, but not overdo it, right? Then it's acceptance. So she likes to call this stage adaptation or integration. This is where we have fully integrated our illness into our lives and have come to the realization that while it may have to be a normal part of life for us, it's not simply being okay with being sick, right? Which is why we tend to not like the word acceptance. But it is coming to terms with and finding ways to integrate the illness without making it the driver or the main character in our lives, right? Because at the end of the day, we are the captain of our ship. We find ways to properly manage the illness and care for our mind and bodies when we need to, but we also find ways to be happy, experience new things, and surround ourselves with people who understand our needs and help us achieve our goals. Does anyone want to share in the chat if they have ever felt like they are experiencing any of these stages after receiving your diagnosis? Or if you know someone that's been going through something, if you're uncomfortable sharing yourself, you can just write in the chat. If not, we can move on. Adelia says she's experienced them all. Yeah, I think we all have, because it's the realization that grief happens not only with death, right? Because we're talking about someone just getting a diagnosis and having to go through this. So we've all experienced it. Okay. Next slide, please. All right, so yes, multiple sclerosis patients is serious. And also sickle cell patients. I have a few people that have sickle cell and it's really hard for them. So, okay, so grief can be broken down into categories, and then those categories can be broken down into categories, right? And it gets so complicated that they even created a category called complicated grief, right? So complicated grief has features both of depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. Complicated grief and traumatic bereavement can be used interchangeably, but the official definition of traumatic bereavement is the state of having suffered the loss when grief and mourning over a death is complicated or overpowered by the traumatic stress brought about by a circumstance. That was a mouthful, right? But in all of that being said, trauma experiences, right, such as being diagnosed with a chronic illness or even experiencing a natural disaster or a pandemic like we did during COVID, right? Can anyone see how being diagnosed with a chronic illness or going through anything like that can lead to a complicated grief type of situation with symptoms? It's prevalent, right? Okay, next slide, please. All right, so this is another type of grief. This one I wanted to talk about in particular because although the definition is speaking about death, we know that it could intertwine with a person living with chronic diseases. So anticipatory grief occurs before your death or loss of a loved one, right? Similar emotions of grief after loss. So could be like you taking care of your grandma, with dementia and you see her deteriorate, right? But let's do a case study. You're 29, finally met the love of your life. You decided to settle down, get married, start a family, only to find out you have fibroids the size of apples in your uterus, right? Do you think that this could cause some anticipatory grief about her future? Right? It's easy to see how feelings of anticipatory grief may show its face when dealing with a chronic disease diagnosis. Yep, you're nervous, you're scared. You know, you're already thinking the worst as much as you don't want to. You're anticipating it, especially if it's something new. Next slide, please. So anticipatory grief, it feels uncomfortable, right? In between having hope and letting go, opportunities for closure. You cope by sharing feelings, right? Maintaining hope and preparing for the loss, or, you know, in this perspective, at least preparing for what's to come. Next slide, please. Okay, so I've highlighted, let me make this small. So I've highlighted some physical symptoms that may manifest when dealing with grief and depression. As you can see, a lot of the symptoms may intertwine, right, with some of your own chronic illness symptoms. So it is so important to be aware of what is happening, document, and speak to your doctor about anything new that you may be feeling or experiencing, right? So look at these symptoms that could arise just because you are, you know, mentally not feeling well. This has nothing to do with you physically being sick. Chest pain, altered immune system, digestion issues, brain fog, right? Decrease in memory or concentration, headaches, anxiety, panic disorders, guilt, self-blame, regret, right? A lot of those symptoms are masked. They could be masking your own physical symptoms that you can be dealing with too, right? So it's very, very, very important to understand how much like your mental really does play a role intertwined with your medical. Next slide, please. All right, so guilt is normal in the early stages of grief, right? You often consists of self-blame or regret. You feel like a failure or inadequate. Guilt is heavy. Don't carry it alone, right? And forgive yourself. So I mentioned guilt in one of the stages earlier, but isn't it ironic that feelings of guilt arise during situations that we have no control over to even feel guilty about? Like you didn't just rob a bank, right? And the cops just came after you. You didn't just shoot somebody. You are just living your life and something happened to you. Why are you feeling guilty, right? It's just it's very mind-boggling how the mind works and how the enemy uses tactics to really get to you, right? Because at the end of the day, your mind, everything flows from it, right? Your physical, everything. So if you are not mentally there or you're constantly feeling negative about yourself, it's only going to keep you sick, right? What about your situation? And this is only if you want to share. Have you ever felt the most guilty about? If you have ever felt guilty about being in a situation or know of someone that has, you can write in the comments. Okay, trouble showing up for friends and family versus stay up, not living up to expectations. Yeah, I've seen that often, the burden talk, because obviously you need help. And that's one of the coping mechanisms I have is to seek help. So if you're constantly seeking help when you need it, you're taking away from someone else. So you are always going to feel guilty, right? Like it's inevitable. But it's something you just gotta monitor, not sort of let it take over, you know, your everyday being, because this is something you can't control. There's no reason to feel guilty about this. All right. Next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, your mental health intertwines with your physical health, right? And we're dealing with the chronic illness and feelings of depression. Coping or healing has to be looked at from like a unanimous perspective, right? Trying to get through a therapy session and chronic back pain can be quite difficult. So like coping and healing has to start very slow but subtle. It has to be consistent and it has to incorporate all elements of your mind, body, and soul, right? It's just full circle healing, full circle healing. Clients will be experiencing their symptoms, like your disease symptoms, and the stages of grief simultaneously, like I stated. We usually think of grief with respect to the loss of a loved one, but with chronic disease, your client may be grieving the life they used to live, right? Knowing that their lives they're going to be changed forever because of the illness is very, very stressful. In addition to that, the individual may be thinking about the future and how their health will be 10 years from now, right? It's a constant thinking of where am I going to be next year or the year after that? And, a lot of rambling of how you're going to get there. It's more so, what are you doing now, right? What are your mechanisms that you're doing now to get you to where you need to be next year? Next slide, please. All right, so the MH brothers, medical health and mental health, right? So it's important for you to be an advocate for your health. You got to take accountability and do the work and the research to ensure you are okay. You take your medication, you work out, ask questions, and take the necessary precautions you need to stay healthy as possible. So I'm a registered nurse. I'm all for people like doing their own research if you want to go on Google, but you also have to, do seek medical advice and get a second opinion. It doesn't have to end right then and there. This is your health. It's not dealing with, trying to get a grade on the test. This is something important. So it's totally fine if you want to like shop around or at least seek extra advice, okay? Because chronic diseases, unfortunately, are looked over a lot, right? Feelings of depression are diminished when you feel and know you're doing everything possible to stay alive, right? You are doing an amazing job. Keep it up. How did that feel? You felt great, right? You didn't even do anything. See what I mean? Like, so imagine if you actually made the doctor's appointment, went to the doctor, you feel good about yourself. And you got to just sort of remember to continue to give you that, the book, the push and those affirmations to keep you going, right? So mental health, holistically, if your mind, body, and soul work interchangeably, right? Although all tasks may seem easier said than done, ensuring that you're able to express yourself to someone is of dire importance to your healing success. I don't care if it's a dog, because I know people don't like to talk to people, and I totally get that. Talk to the dog, talk to the cat, talk to the fish. You need to just vocalize something, write it down. Keeping things in and keeping your thoughts to yourself can ultimately drive you crazy, and that does not help you or your diagnosis, right? And it's always important to have a safe outlet or a community who you can talk to. Next slide, please. All right, so coping mechanisms. Coping involves making new plans for a new life change by illness, right? So how do you cope with adjusting to a new life you didn't even ask for? This wasn't a leap of faith move across the country to start a new life, type of new life. This is I am waking up in pain and just found out this would be the rest of my life type of new life, right? How do you cope? How have you guys gotten any diagnoses and it's sort of like blew the wind out of your socks? What was the first thing you thought of or did to at least get you back on track with the next step? How have you coped? Resources, yep, research. That's usually my first go-to. Hit Google. Hit Google, yep. Next slide, please. Yes, and mothers make everything so much better. All right, so these are just a few simple coping mechanisms I did jot down. There are several, and I think everyone is individualized, so these are just ideas. Everyone is different. Again, just because I'm saying connect with people, some people are introverts and don't really want to talk, so maybe journaling might be a option, but don't ever feel limited when like through these sessions that this is it, because it's like infinite possibilities of coping, okay? So connecting with people, which I think is the number one and important one besides God, whether it be a professional, friend or family member, connect. This new journey may seem lonely, but you are never alone. Never, never alone, okay? Start journaling, a new self-care practice like bubble baths every Sunday or sign up for a dance class, right? Do something different. I mean, in the scope of that you're capable of doing it anyway, but do something out the box, you know, go see a movie by yourself. Um, Bucket list things that are just like sort of spark excitement in your life and sort of just take away from what is for the moment. Remember, this is a new life you are creating, and despite what the diagnosis is, you are still the captain of your ship. Make an effort to make each day count, okay? Ask for help, whether you are in pain or just need to vent. Closed mouths do not get fed. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help because we are all human. We all need it eventually, okay? Next slide, please. Okay, spirituality. So chronic illness can ignite our senses. It can either test it, reconnect it, or rebuild our faith. Rituals done in our faith community can help us provide comfort. So during this season, your faith has to be ignited in ways you never thought possible. Like, you have to believe the pain won't last forever. You have to continuously believe there will be a brighter day and peaceful future, right? Because faith is the backbone of healing. Again, faith is the backbone of healing. If you don't believe you're going to get better, you won't get better. It is what it is. Everything starts with your mind and how you passionately feel. If you go into physical therapy, got a broken hip, if you're not putting in the work, you won't get better, right? You got to believe it in order to get better. Faith is a belief of things unseen, which is one of my favorite quotes. Next slide, please. So if you are here as a family member or just wanted to get some support for someone, I listed some ways that you can help support someone with a chronic illness who you feel like might be, a little bit depressed or showing signs of depression. There are so many acts of kindness that can go a long way in someone's life. Sometimes the smallest gestures can make a huge impact in someone, right? So this is your friendly reminder to please be kind always. You never know what someone is going through. But these are some of my favorite ones when I like to, cry out for help. Cook a meal, assist with medical appointments, either making them, transporting them, coming with you. Financial gifts, please cash at me. Talk with them about the diagnosis if you're willing to speak, right? Because you don't have to do anything you don't want to. Listen instead of advising, because I think a lot of family members and people that love you will do their own Googling, right? And come back to you with like, I think you need to drink 6 gallons of aloe and you'll be fine, especially the elders, like, we know the vibes already. Just listen. We didn't ask for the advice. You're not the doctor. Just listen. And be open to the grieving and healing process, right? This is not easy for the person that you loved, right? And seeing someone sick and going through something is a lot. You can't take away that pain ultimately, but you can, make them feel better in ways. So next slide, please. So there's some more. Ask how are you feeling instead of how are you, right? Reach out and speak up. Be present. Invite them out or ask to come over. And this is the best one. If they have kids, I'll offer childcare. 2 hours without little Bobby sometimes could go a long way when you're not feeling well. So next slide, please. Okay, so I found when doing research, a lot of resources. This one is the first slide is basically more so grief related. So 20 Rose Foundation Inc., that's my website. I do provide grief counseling and support. We can do a welcome call just to get your feet wet and see what exactly you want. Grief Share is an awesome international support group. I've heard of them people use them across the world. SAMHSA, Substance Abuse and Mental Health. Bereaved Parents USA, and Imagine, Center for Coping with Loss. And everyone should be aware of the suicide hotline 988. Next slide. So I have like a few slides of resources, so I can send it over later on, but I did do some research on chronic patients with chronic illness and support groups. And for patients with maternal health disorders and disparities. And I found a whole lot, even a men's miscarriages for men's work group, which is probably the next slide. But Compassionate Friends, Exhale offers a free national text line that provides emotional support. I forgot to mention that as well for people that are not comfortable speaking to family or feel like they don't have anyone to speak to. There's so many free resources online that you can actually call and talk to a stranger for free. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so there's even resources for the LGBTQ community I found. Resolve through sharing. There's Share Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support. Sisters in Loss. Next slide, please. March of Dimes, which is I'm very passionate about. My hospice job actually donates to them. So there's awesome organization. Hope Mommies, Mend, the miscarriages for men that I spoke about. Next slide, please. Miscarriages Matters, PALS. Like I shared all because I was really surprised and like in depth of how detailed each, there were so many support groups, like in so much detail. So I put them all because I was really excited. Next slide. Star Legacy Foundation. This is a virtual grief support group. Virtual grief groups and virtual support groups have become really prominent now, especially post-COVID. Facebook groups and those type of things are now prevalent now. So like getting help and speaking to someone has become a lot more easier. And literally as you grab your phone, opposed to having to make an appointment, go in to see someone. So there's no real excuse to not seek help if needed. All right, Tears Foundation helps with financial burdenship for some families, lost a child. You can slip next. And keep pushing through the page. So life will continue to life, right? I don't think there's no slowing down. I think my only request for everyone is to continue to live through it all, right? The ups and the downs, because we don't have a say in this thing called life. And all we can do is try to figure out how we can stay afloat for our families, for our friends, for ourselves, because life is worth a living. So next slide. Please stay connected with me. This went really fast. I'm sorry if I went too fast, but we can open up the chat and I'm gonna read and comment now since I could not open the chat prior. But if you guys are interested, you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Tony Rose Foundation. Grieving Granny is in the book that I wrote with my daughter. That's her in the picture. And we have an Instagram as well. And I'm on LinkedIn as well as Keanna Hinds. So let me open up the chat.
Thank you so much for that. That was amazing. Yes, please, if anyone has questions, now is the time to ask questions. I had some questions, but you've answered pretty much all of them. So very thorough, very thorough.
Yes, Chrisanne said, sorry. Chrisanne said rheumatoid arthritis. Okay, you were mentioned, I think that's what she was mentioning, her disease. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Resources all should know if you don't know about costplusdrugs.com. Oh yeah, costplusdrugs.com. Thank you for that resource. That's actually an awesome website.
Mark, sorry, yeah, Mark Cuban is growing the amount of medications he can supply. So if your medication's not listed, you can send him a message and they add it to kind of their wish list. So, I mean, a lot of the medications are $3.
Wow, that's, yeah, thank you for that.
$5.
Thank you. I will
Awesome.
definitely share
So
that.
much.
Anyone have any questions or concerns or want to comment?
We'll wait for some questions. What would you suggest for those facing family or friends asking intrusive questions about infertility?
So it's a touchy subject, but I always feel like with those type of situations, it's along the line of when you're grieving and you can basically say whatever you want. You don't have like a filter when it comes to like those type of questions, especially if you're over age, right? Because they love to, those questions hit after what, 35, right? Especially if you're with someone, you don't know anyone's situation. You can always kill with kindness, but I'm gonna keep it real. Because it's really on the same level. Like, don't come for my uterus. It's the same way as talking about somebody's grandma that passed away. Like, don't come for us. I think you have all right to just, at that point, and then they'll stop.
I agree.
Boundaries, right? Boundaries.
I agree. Sometimes you have to teach people to keep
Yes.
their boundaries.
Amen to that.
Because I have experienced that same question.
Yeah, and it's very frustrating. People go through so much,
Yes,
it's like
You're grieving your own infertility, and then here comes a person with
what's
some
going on?
nonsense question or comment towards.
And that's why you're able to just spit hot fire back, because you got the grief. Once you got that grief green light, let it go. Let it go.
I love making people feel uncomfortable when they ask me about my fertility. You're making me uncomfortable, so I'm going to make you uncomfortable too. Fair.
Basically.
Fair. Fair. Are there any questions on Facebook?
No, there are no questions on the Facebook chat.
Okay. What are some physical activities you'd recommend for those grieving their and obviously, we're not talking about climbing mountains, but like any kind of craft, what would you suggest wise?
Breathing exercises. I would dabble with yoga, but I know, spiritually, some people don't dabble in yoga and Buddha, but breathing exercises goes a long way. That helps tremendously. Like, you don't even have to run on the treadmill. Just sit down in a corner and breathe, and you will feel better. So that's the best exercise. Yes, Tai Chi is good too. Thanks for saying.
I love the part where you were talking about that limbo. Because I was just speaking with a patient where you're in this weird space where you've got this new diagnosis, but you're not sure if you're going to get better or if you're just going to be sick forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got this loss of yourself, but you can't reevaluate your life because you don't know where you stand.
Yep. It's very hard.
You're in this halted grief.
Mm-hmm. It's like a standstill, right? Like, am I supposed to be sad or am I supposed to be taking my meds?
Like where do you go? How do you deal with that? Like, because you can't complete the oh, thank you, Emily. Glow.com has some guided meditations and Pilates and things
Thank
like that.
you. Emily got all the researches. Are you a social worker? I love my social. I know.
Is a social worker.
I love my social worker. That's hilarious.
Glow.com have activity options for every level of ability you have for your really low energy or really high pain days. Maybe your only movement is a few laps around your bedroom. I do that. I'm like, no, I haven't. I've been in bed all day. I need to move. And I will literally just do some laps around the bedroom. But on a better day, you could support some squats, gentle mobility exercises at home.
Yeah.
One of the things I like to do is a lot of chair exercises that are technically meant for like older folks. but they're good. They're
They
good
help.
with circulation going.
Yeah, there's
Even
so
at
many,
times that I do in bed.
it's
Yep.
so much resources online that you can use. And honestly, one of my favorite quotes is a little a day goes a long way. It could be used on every aspect, like your body, your mind, you know. If you want to start off 2 minutes with breathing exercise, you know, 3 minutes on the chair exercise, but you did it, you know, the next day, maybe you could try 5. Like, so always a little a day.
Community pools, they have great exercise programs that are easier on the body. Yep. The water helps.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with your own body weight. You're kind of floaty. It's nice.
And if you're in the Caribbean, the
Then you
beach.
can go in the beach.
Oh, yeah.
You
Just get
can-
a good sat down, right?
If you're coming to us from New York, please don't go in the water. There are flesh-eating amoebas. Thanks. That was just in the news this morning, so please don't go in the water here. Go into a pool. Thanks. I'm gonna pass on the amoebas. Oh man. Yes, being in the presence of water for 20 minutes can do amazing things for your mental health. For some reason, the number is 20 minutes. 20 minutes also of sunshine.
Really?
So yes, these are things I had to learn while I was in some dark places over the last few years with my health. And my acupuncturist told me, listen, try, if you're going to take your tea, take it in the garden. That 15 to 20 minutes of sunshine will do amazing things for your mental health. And then also just being in the presence of water, hearing it. So
Yeah.
what I like to do is, one of my doctors is right near Brighton Beach. So after I'm done with the doctor, I'll walk down to the beach and I'll just sit there and listen to the waves for 20 minutes. And then I go home after.
Yeah. It's something about it, right? Moana always sort of hits that on the nugget for me. Like, she'll like, it's something about the water.
There's something about the water.
It's healing in it.
Yep. Yep. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll do some of my meditations. I like, since it's Sunday, I'll share Abide. That's my mindfulness. It's a Christian-based one. You know, there's Headspace if you want something that's non-denominational, but it's kind of expensive. Abide is a little cheaper, and if you want something faith-based, I love Abide, so you can do some meditations with that. I'll put that in the chat. Abide. Abide and Encounter. Oh, I've not heard of Encounter.
Oh, and it's an app too. Cool.
Another thing that I do, which is, it's called Soak Stream. Soak Stream. This one's a Christian-based one on YouTube. So it's very, very free. And essentially it's just someone reading scripture to you in a very soft voice. And some of them have like soft music in the background and some have ocean waves. I like the ocean waves. And when I'm particularly anxious, or sometimes like the night before a big doctor's appointment or something like that, I'll play that and it goes for 8, 10, 12 hours. So you can play it while you're sleeping.
Thank you, girl. I'm learning too.
Centering Prayer is another free app. Oh, we're getting all the resources tonight. Getting all the resources. All the resources. Does anyone want to share their experiences with grief because of their chronic illness, whether it's, you know, losing your job, not being able to be as active as you once were? I know a lot of athletes have a lot of, you know, very strong grief when they're not able to compete or perform the way they want to because of being diagnosed with a chronic illness. Grief with infertility. Anyone want to speak about their experience? If we don't have any questions.
I can go first if
Go ahead.
everyone else is shy. I think for me, there's been a lot of grief over the years, more so in the past year for me. I had my second surgery related to my health conditions last year, October. And before surgery, I experienced a lot of anticipatory grief in that I knew what was coming and I was grieving the loss of what I was going to lose. I was grieving who I could have been. I was grieving some dreams. And after the surgery, I had grief again because now it is final. It's definitely not being able to have children at all. Grieving the life that you thought you would have had, and you know what, you're not sure what this holds for you. And you're also grieving the years that you have lost to your conditions. It's just been a roller coaster, as Keanna said. Just a lot of things tied up in one. There's been anger, there's been anxiety. You know, what if something else happens? What if I need another surgery? What if this surgery didn't fix all of my issues? What if they find something else? Just a lot of, I am not sure what is happening here. What will be my future? And now I'm in a different phase of my life that I did not expect to be going through as a young woman. And how do you navigate that new space that you're in with people not taking you seriously? And, you know, they'll be seeing you experiencing something and they'll go, oh, you're too young for that. How do you know what I'm too young for? You don't know what I'm going through, you know? So there's just been a lot of grief surrounding the effects of my health conditions, of my chronic illnesses, and all of the things that come with it, the surgeries, the medications, the everything. Because sometimes I look at other people who are my age and I'm like, you know, what would it have been like if I didn't have these illnesses? Would life have been easier? Would I have been happier? What would it have been like? You're grieving all of the what ifs and also your current experience, which comes with complications for you. So I've had my own experience with grief with regards to my chronic illnesses. And when you have multiple chronic illnesses just stacked on top of one another, it's just been an interesting ride, to say the least. And trying to find things that help me cope, though that has been good. It's definitely important for me. I think the number one coping mechanism that you shared is connection. And that has been, I think for me, the most important coping mechanism that I have had that works for me. So having a community, while I curse my conditions on one hand, I'm thankful for them on another because they have brought me community in a way that I never had before. So community, I'm in the Caribbean, I live next to the beach. I don't even need to go in the water. I just need to see the water. You know, I have to pass it every day on my way to and from work, and that's all I need. I just need to see it to keep me calm. I used to read a lot, and I'm looking at my bookshelf right here next to me. The books are there looking at me. So I'm so tired that I don't get to read as often as I would like, but I love to read. I've picked up adult coloring. I love adult coloring books. Very relaxing. Music, I'm always playing my music. I love music. Even though I cannot sing, I will sing to the top of my lungs. I don't care who hears me. I feel good when I do it, so I'm doing it. I'm looking at all my little goodie baskets over here. So my coloring books, the books to read I'll eventually get there. The beach, connections, music. Yeah, I think those are my main coping mechanisms that work for me. And I encourage anyone, find what works for you. Just, yes, Keanna, you've been reading the same book since January, so don't see. Let me, I've been reading this book since, what month is this? August? I've been reading this book since maybe March. And I am still, I will not tell you any lie, I am still on page 28. So, I mean, I try. The important part is I try. And so I encourage persons to find what works for them. And I like hearing other people share because sometimes it may ring a bell for me and I'm like, okay, I can try that. That's something easy that I can do that can help me through this moment. So yeah. Thank you for listening.
And one of the things you mentioned reminded me of something else in Keanna's presentation about complicated grief, because you were talking about your surgery, and surgery for a lot of us is a traumatic event, especially if we've had surgeries that didn't go well. So we've got this complicated, complex layers of grief with the trauma. I saw someone was going to come off. Go ahead. Kemether? Is that how you pronounce your name? I'm sorry, I apologize if I've screwed it up. But if you have something to share, by all means. But I just want just a quick note about complicated grief and our strange relationship. Oh, I'm muted by accident. Okay. Our strange relationships with trauma and medical. I personally have been diagnosed with PTSD from medical trauma. You know, because and it's not just the surgeries, which if you have endo, the likelihood of you having had many failed surgeries before you had the good one is highly likely. And then also the ER visits. The ER visits are definitely traumatic because you go there and you get gaslit, and the people there don't believe that you're having a real problem. They leave you to cry and scream alone in the corner. A hospital can be the worst. I'm such a frequent flyer. I now have a favorite, you know, I know which ERs I'm going to get good care at. And I know, like, okay, that's my favorite ER. I'm going to go there because they're going to treat me with respect and believe that I have a problem. So we have all these layers, all the trauma and the grief and all of those things together. Someone else wants to share their story. Sorry, I was reading. I should have been reading these out loud. Related to so much of that, thank you for sharing. It's real, hospitals are the worst. Yes, thank you so much for sharing. The trauma is so real. Yes, very true.
I just wanted to comment on when Odelia was sharing her story. I know she mentioned, you know, other people talking about, oh, you're too young for that. And it's funny because when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, I was saying that to myself, like, I'm too young for this. What are you talking about? And I myself was in denial, despite the pain that I was experiencing and everything that I had read. And I have to say, I was also thankful that it was not anything worse. But I can definitely understand that feeling of like, I'm too young for this. Like, what? I'm not supposed to experience this type of thing until I'm like in my 60s or 70s. Like, what's going on here? So that was a really trying moment at that time for me. But I just also wanted to thank the both of you because I think this is a really important discussion. You know, a lot of times I don't think people realize that with chronic illness, there is a level of grief and there is a loss of something. I don't think it's common knowledge to people, especially people who don't experience any type of chronic illness. So I just wanted to just thank you guys for realizing the importance of this forum and sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris Ann. Thank you so much. I want to give everyone another chance. If anyone wants to share any comments, any questions for Keanna. And then once we're done sharing, I know we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff, so I want to do a mindfulness practice to close us out. But if anyone else wants to share, I want to make sure you have time because we're here to listen. Okay. So is this recorded? So because it's on Facebook Live, there will be a replay available. There will be a replay available.
Rest easy, pay easy. Buy your bed on your budget and pay over time with a firm. Visit Casper.com/financing.
I don't want that. I want
This
AQA.
is a metabolism killer. This
Okay.
is a metabolism
Thanks.
killer. And
Thanks,
even
YouTube. I
this,
appreciate you. Right. All right, everyone. Get a nice.
Shakina's hand is up.
Shakina wants to talk. Of course, Shakina. Go ahead.
Okay, so good night, everyone. I like this session because I didn't realize that I was allowed to grieve when I was diagnosed with my stuff. And I didn't even realize that persons grieve over being diagnosed with illnesses. But I must honestly say that since Odelia and this little group come together, I realized my mindset about my conditions have changed. I realized that with my recent diagnosis of endometriosis about a month and a half ago, I did not grieve as long and as hard as I did when I found out about PCOS. So what I do to help me manage, because I went to the doctor yesterday, I'm still waiting for some other tests, and I have this mindset now that it seems no matter when I go to the doctor or what kind of test I have to do, I'm expecting bad news. So even before I go back, I don't make up my mind, I'm expecting bad news. And I really do not know how to change that mindset, because I don't think there ever been a point when I visit a doctor and I'm getting, oh, you're all right. Everything is clean, nothing to worry about. So now I have to go back again. I have to do more tests. And all in my head, I say, boy, what next? What kind of bad news have I set up myself for? And I really wish I don't know if there's something I can do to help change that mindset. When I'm stressed out, because I realize I stress easily, I like to bake. I like to cook. So at this point in time, I had made my own ice cream because I realized I can't be eating ice cream from the store. So I made my own ice cream, and I'm proud of myself because it wasn't something in my zone. So I made like little avocado ice cream, and it's delicious, ladies. Very good. And I have go into baking, and I started to look up different recipes to cook so that I can stay away from the stuff that I need to stay away from. And I think that has distracted me a lot from dealing with what I have to deal with. I try to exercise. I'm not gonna lie, I do not like it because I have arthritis in both knees and one half of my spinal cord, which is so weird. So exercising, I keep hearing like the creaking sound like an old machine. So I do not like to exercise. But however, there are times when I will dance and just let myself be free. But my only concern is, how do I cope with the negative thoughts? Just the one negative thought I have in my head. I'm going back to the doctor. I'm waiting for the bad news. And I'm already setting up myself to get bad news. Even if sometimes when I go back, it's not really a bad news, it's just a little concern or a minor change. I'm already setting up myself for the bad news. So how do I deal with that?
So remember I stated everything flows from the mind, right? So if you constantly are thinking it, then you're putting it already out there, or that energy out there. Just got to counteract it. You got to start saying the opposite. Everything will be fine. Everything will be fine, because everything will be fine. It may not, regardless of what happens after the doctor's appointment, what news you do get, everything will be fine though. So you're not lying to yourself, right? Everything will be fine. You just got to keep saying it more than, I think thinking, generalizing positivity in the whole helps to like minimalize the negative, the negativity that could be like creeping from the little stuff. You got to look at the big picture. Yes, it's a scary doctor's appointment you're going to. You may not have gotten the results you wanted the last one, so it's scary going in there. But it's better to say everything will be okay, thinking like fully, like as a full aspect, opposed to like, I'm about to walk in here for bad news, because that is just gonna hold you down, way down on you, right? From the time you enter the room, either despite what news you get, when you leave, you're just gonna have that on you. You walk in saying everything will be okay, because you're thinking fully. It's not about what's happening in the room, just in general. Everything will be okay. Regardless, you might be a little bit bummed, but everything will be okay. Because you have to try to change that mindset, the negative mindset thinking, because it does manifest. You don't want to be the author of your own like scary movie. You want it to be a happy novel. This is a bad analogy, but you get what I'm trying to say. So Brittany said, I think it's a way of you trying to protect yourself mentally. Expect disappointment so you won't be disappointed. I've done that in the past, but you're basically suppressing it, and all it builds up and comes crashing down later on, which is very, very true. So it's just about every time you hear the negative, just think the opposites and just say it. It doesn't matter if you don't believe it. You have to say it until you actually start to feel it. Think holistically in a full aspect, opposed to zooming in on that one problem,
So I've got 3 for you. The first 2 are kind of similar. So when we're having these complicated emotions, because remember we already talked about layers, right? There's a lot of layers and complexities to it. While we want to counteract it, because the devil is a whole liar, right? The devil is a whole liar. We do want to counteract it with affirmations, but the grief and the negative feelings that you're feeling are also normal. And instead of trying to suppress it, like the person was saying here, you gotta work it through your body, through and out. And the 2 ways I do that, Odelia was talking about singing. I like to sing very loud. So first, you start off with songs that are going to make you cry, and then you move to songs that are going to uplift you, right? So you cry and you scream and you sing it out, and then you move on to the songs that bring you up. That's a really great way. And dance around, jump around while you're doing it. It could be gospel music, it could be show tunes, it could be 90s R&B, whatever your vibe is, go for it. So you get those emotions out. Another way, especially because these diagnoses were trauma, right? There's a doctor around, I don't know if some of you heard, he says diagnosis as therapy, because he thinks, oh, once you get that diagnosis, you have the relief of the diagnosis, but you also have the grief of the diagnosis and the trauma of the diagnosis. So when you have that trauma, I was taught that doing crafts that involve both your hands get the trauma out. So whether it's sewing, whether it's decoupage, so make something with your hands. So you were talking about making ice cream. That's a great way, something that involves both hands. And then my last one, baking. Yes, something that you create with your own hands helps get that trauma out. So sing it out, make art, do something, write it. I'm terrible at journaling, which is why I didn't mention it, but a lot of people like to journal. Write it all out and then burn it. You can keep it if you want. Burn the negative. You could also just burn it. Write it all out and burn it. Last one, quick grounding exercise. I've showed you guys this one before. The 5 point. You start down here, you inhale and you exhale, and then you trace your hand. Inhale, exhale until you go through the whole hand. Do it as many times as you can to get yourself calm and grounded, and then do a craft. Burn, baby, burn. So I hope those were helpful to you, Shakina. Some tips, because it's hard. It's not easy. And keep coming to our meetings, because you know, being part of this community, getting to talk it out, it helps too. Okay, good. Thank you. Faith is the belief of things unseen. Another great resource, if you knit or crochet both hands, this is an amazing group, and it is actually provides, oh, to the homeless. Okay, soap sacks. Oh, what is this? Is that a bread? Is that a cake? Baking to keep me calm. Good. I like to
just something. What is her name? Emily. That's crochet link. I crochet. I have not been doing it as often as I would like. But that link that you just sent, is it that it's we crochet together? Because we're not in the same country, so I'm just trying to figure out if it's something that I too can join. You
can definitely join if you check out their page. They have the format for, I don't know what you they have the template for how you crochet, and they're sacks that you send to them by mail, and they use it as like a washcloth for people who are on the streets, veterans, the unhoused, and they provide the soap and they get them handed out. So as a group, they have group sessions via Zoom of people who all want to be doing this together because people want to help out.
That's so cool. Thank you.
Welcome.
And it's a banana chocolate chip bread she shared a picture of. This is making me hungry. That's wonderful. Okay, it's 7:13. I want to make sure we bring ourselves down, because I know all the heavy stuff. So grab, if you're not seated upright, get your feet nice and planted on the ground, and we're going to take a deep inhale. Close your eyes if you need to. We're going to do a quick body scan. We're going to start at our toes. Pull the whole bottoms of our feet against the ground. Notice the texture of the floor below us. Is it carpeted? Is it wood? Is it cool to the touch? Move up to our ankles. our calves, up to the knees, and the thighs, into our hips and our pelvis, our lower backs, deep in our belly. And as we move up our trunk, we want to see where we're feeling that breath. Are we feeling it deep in the belly? Are we feeling it higher up in the chest? Are we feeling our rib cage expand? Take a moment just here, feel the breath. Go up into our sternum, our shoulders, into the neck, chin, the ears, the cheeks, and the nose. We want to feel if there's any tension in between our eyebrows and let it go. Up and out through the tops of our head. And take another deep inhale. Now I want to take a moment. Imagine your very favorite beach in the entire world. We're walking off the boardwalk into the sand. It's nice and soft. And here's seagulls overhead. We're walking towards the waterline and the sand becomes firmer beneath our feet. We'll grab a spot to sit. Feel the sand between our toes and the waves lapping up against our feet. We feel a nice breeze going across our face. And the warmth of the sun on our shoulders. There are some children in the background playing. Just take a moment here to look up at the sky, one singular cloud floating by. Take a deep inhale and to almost smell the fresh beach air. Take one more moment in this place. And when we're feeling those negative emotions from a bad doctor's appointment, or got a new diagnosis, a family member has said something, or a friend has said something insensitive, we want to remember this place and how we feel right now in this moment. We're going to take a moment now to wiggle our toes and our fingers. We're going to come back to our homes, wherever it is you're seated. Hear the sounds in the background. Take one last deep inhale. And in your own time, open your eyes. Okay. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Keanna, for your wonderful presentation. It was so helpful to all of us. Really, really, really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me again, guys. This was awesome. And it's also, like I said before, it's really good to reflect on the different ways that grief does creep up in life besides death, because it's inevitable, unfortunately. So I'm all for pushing through with the coping mechanisms. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're very welcome. And also tell us again, how do we find you and the Tony Rose Foundation, and where can we purchase Grieving Granny?
On the TonyRoseFoundation.org's page, well, website, TonyRoseFoundation.org. You can purchase Grieving Granny. You can follow us on social media on Instagram. In the link in bio, you can always get to the page as well. So
Awesome. Thank you so much.
welcome, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Odelia, Kemet, do you have any closing words?
Just wanted to say thank you. Thank you, Keanna, for accepting our invitation to join us tonight. Thank you, Liz, for hosting us. Thank you to all of the wonderful persons who are joining us here tonight. I know our journeys may be different, but we are united by the fact that we live with chronic illnesses, whatever those may be. And I hope that you find your coping mechanisms, the ones that work for you. It is okay to grieve. It is okay to be sad. It's a normal part of living with chronic illnesses. And I just hope that you're able to find pockets of joy in this experience. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
For me, I was just going to say thanks to Keanna for this very timely and also valuable discussion on grief and its relation to chronic illness. Thanks to Alyssa for hosting. Thanks to all the ladies that joined us tonight. I know I learned a lot, and even though I didn't speak a lot, many of the things that were mentioned and the experiences that were shared kind of resonated with me. So thanks a lot for that. And just, wishing everyone a safe night, and encouraging you all to continue pushing on. Keanna mentioned it, but this struggle that we face sometimes, it gets a bit difficult, to keep pushing, but a little bit goes a long way. So keep pushing, keep fighting, and don't give up. All right.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.